In exercise 302, we're still looking at equations. However, some equations are called formulas, and the reason that they're called a formula is because now we have an understanding of what the pronumeral, the x or the y, is actually measuring in real life. You've come across formulas, many formulas, in maths previously. You know that when we write A is equal to L times B, that's an equation. However, we've called it a formula because we know that this A represents the area of a rectangle and the L represents the length of the rectangle and B is the breadth. So we're going to be looking at formulas, but really they behave exactly like an equation. We saw in exercise 301 that it's only possible to solve an equation when we've got one variable only. So in this situation, we have three variables. You know that you can only get an answer if you're able to substitute numbers in the place for the length and the breadth. You are able to get an answer for the area. We also know that it would be possible to get maybe the length if we knew the area was 10 and the breadth was 5. So in that situation, yes, we know two pieces of information and we've created an equation with just one variable or unknown or pronumeral, and we can solve then and find that L would be equal to 2. A common formula that you come across in science is this v squared equals u squared plus 2as. Now, just mathematically looking at that, even if we don't understand the physics, we would say this formula has 4 different variables. If we're going to use that formula to solve, we have to be able to substitute numbers for 3 of the variables. Then we would create an equation with just one variable left, and we would be able to solve that equation. So to solve an equation, it can only obtain one type of variable, and yeah, you saw that from the previous exercise. So to achieve your formula with only one type of variable, you'll need to replace some of the variables with a number until you have an equation with only one type of variable, and then you solve it. And you use the skills from exercise 301 to do that. So another example, the body mass index, the BMI of an adult, is B equals M divided by h squared. So you can see there are 3 variables in total, where M is the mass in kilograms and h is the height in metres of the person. It's always nice if you're finding and this pronumeral would be referred to as the subject of the equation. This is the variable that the equation is basically about. Doesn't mean that it's the only thing we can calculate from this equation or this formula. We know that. We could find M, we could find H. But if you look at this example, it says the BMI of Alex, who is 1.85 metres tall and has a mass of 72 kilos. Oh, we've got to find the BMI. I just encourage you to pay particular attention to the description of the formula. So by that I mean, it says here, this is the description, where M is the mass in kilograms and H is the height in metres. You will see situations where that has been, or something similar to that has been the explanation for the formula, and then they give you data that doesn't match that. That's not the case in this question. So we're finding B, and what do we know? Alex's height is 1.85 metres, which is great, it had to be in metres, and the mass is 72 kilograms, and again that's making the question straightforward because the mass had to be in kilograms. So we're going to go straight to the formula and substitute our values in. And I'll just go sideways. So m is 72 divided by 1.85, and that needs to be squared. And I strongly encourage you to use your calculator. And one of the biggest advantages of our new calculator is this fraction facility. So you can see there that we don't even need the brackets that, like I've indicated in the setting out here, that I would bracket that. With previous calculators that would have been the case. However, with this new calculator, we don't need to do that. It understands that it's got to square the denominator, and you can see that the answer is 21.03, 21.037, and it didn't tell us how it wanted it rounded. Just before we move on to the next part of this question, you can see here I've completed how many variables. There are 3 variables. So it's a really important little thing to do. You don't have to necessarily write down this statement, but it's always a good thing to note when you read a question. B says, the mass of Shannon with a BMI 24, find the mass of Shannon with BMI 24 and who is 2.1 metres tall. Now, one of the biggest mistakes that students make is they just put the first number in the first spot and the second number in the second spot. You're going to see that that's actually not going to give you the correct answer, in that it was m over h squared. And we have to find m, and again, use your basic, find the mass. BMI is 24, height is 2.1. These are similar skills to those we've been practicing for a long time now, and I really need to see evidence of it in your solution. So find m, b is already 24, and h is 2.1. So we can see that we need to substitute 24 into this spot. We're finding the m, and the h squared is 2.1, and it needs to be squared. So hopefully you can see we have an equation. We have only one unknown, it's the m. It's not by itself, so that becomes our next task. We need to get that m by itself. There are a couple of things you can do. You can think about 24 being 24 over 1, and you can do cross multiplying. So if we cross multiply, we get m is equal to 24 times 2.1 squared. What other students might do and prefer to do is, if you've got m is divided by 2.1 squared, then they understand that you need to multiply by 2.1 squared, and if you do it to one side, you must do it to the other side of your equation. Why did we do it? We did it so those values would cancel out and give us the m by itself. And you can see there, that's a fairly forward, straight calculation. 2.1 squared times 24 is 105.84. Let's have a look at the last part. Find the height. So find h. With a BMI, when b is equal to 20 and mass is equal to 80. So you write your formula, b equals m over h squared. b is 20, m is 80, and we're finding h squared. Again, we've created an equation with just one unknown, it's the h. To solve that sort of an equation, we want to get the h by itself. So again, you've got options. You could cross multiply again, and you would get 20 times h squared is equal to 80 times 1, which is 80. Now, to get the h squared, we need to divide by 20, and 80 divided by 20, 80 on 20 is 4. Now to go from h squared down to h, we need to take the square root, and we would normally consider plus or minus the square root of 4, which is plus or minus 2. However, h represents the height, and negative height doesn't make any sense. So h is equal to 2 only, and the height was being measured in metres. So you've seen there lots of solving equation skills. You don't have to use the exact processes I used. So if you're using a different method to solve your equation, get your pronumeral by itself, and it's giving the correct answer, then you continue to do that.